and I have the proof. I was able to show via a FOIA request, show that the bonuses, their salaries that the agency gets is all to the executive staff. I actually have a case right now that like I said, I'm doing it for free at the VA where a lady is being disciplined for speaking Spanish in the workplace. With the $20 million case that we won, the settlement, the EEO case, nothing happened to those managers.
These managers receive thousands and thousands of dollars in bonuses every year, and it comes out of the pockets of the American taxpayers. How is this fair? Today, we're talking to someone who's worked through some of the toughest environments in the federal government. He spent years inside a federal prison surrounded by some of the most dangerous people in the country. But surprisingly, the toughest battle he would face would be beyond the walls of a cell. Today's guest took on his hardest fight yet, the battle within his own agency, the corruption, the cronyism, and the toxic culture that too many are afraid to confront. He didn't just survive it, he fought back. Along the way, he helped millions in back pay for staff, overturned numerous wrongful terminations, and even sat at the table negotiating the 2018 Master Agreement for the Council of Prison Locals. Now retired, he is still in the fight, providing EO representation for AFGE members in the state of Florida. This is the story of what really goes on behind the walls and what it takes to stand up to a broken system. But before we dive in, I just want to encourage everyone that's watching to share, like, and subscribe. We're quickly becoming one of the fastest growing shows for American working class. We couldn't do it without you. We are raising the voice of Americans all across the nation. So if you're a worker, you know someone who works, you're retired, or honestly, you just live here, this show is for you. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free and it helps us to keep making this content. All right, so let's get right into it. Today's guest is a Bureau of Prisons retiree and former AFGE local president. He's also worked as regional vice president and national representative for AFGE, Joe Rojas. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today and being here on the show. You've got such a list of accomplishments. I probably need another 5 minutes to introduce you, but thank you for being here.
Well, I appreciate being here. It's always a pleasure to talk about our union, AFGE, and the fights that we do. I worked over 28 years in the Bureau of Prisons, working at penitentiaries, every level of custody. But like you said, my biggest battles, not only with inmates, but with the agency that I had to deal with the cronyism, the corruption, I've laid out many times through the media. I've spoken before congressional leaders in the House and the Senate, and continue to do so with just the corruption within our agency. It's really bad.
Yeah, and thank you for being here, for raising a voice, and to keep working for us even after retirement. I mean, you're still fighting this fight. So we're really appreciative of it. So Joe, you spent years working inside one of the toughest environments in the country, federal prisons. What was that like day to day?
I worked at FCC Coleman, which is, for everybody to know, is the largest federal prison in the country. It's 45 minutes north of Orlando. We have over 8,500 inmates, 1,300 staff. And the amount of battles that we did was amazing. Like I said, one of my biggest accomplishments, we did a sexual harassment lawsuit that was settled for $20 million in 2017. Right after that, we had an overtime lawsuit that we won in arbitration for $9.5 million. So in 1 year, we had over $29 million in back pay for our staff. When I spoke to the members of Congress, they thought that the $30 million, $29.5 million were for the entire agency. And I said, no, it's just for my institution alone. And that's just a
Wow.
little bit of some of the battles that I've had with the agency, which is the Bureau of Prisons, which is horrendous when it comes to the cronyism, and just the abuse of our staff and just how bad it is. Like I said, my accomplishments are in cyberfeds. Anybody can look me up, look up my name, look up my local 506, and you can see all my cases, the battles that we fought. You know, we've done OSHA as well. We've done media. I've done press conferences with local officials just to bring the spotlight on the cronyism and on the corruption within our agency.
Right. It's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it's a lot of things that many people aren't aware of that are actually happening. We've seen agencies that typically they like to place the blame on its employees,
Yes.
and never want to take accountability for the actions that they've done. And that's really why we're seeing such a big attack on unions right now, is because they want to strip away this voice from people and from its workers. Joe, there's a lot of people have no idea what staff in federal prisons actually face. Can you paint a picture of what that environment does to a person, to their morale, to their mental health, working in those facilities?
Well, first of all, you got to understand, working in a prison, it's a toxic environment dealing with the inmates. A lot of inmates, and not to bash on inmates, but a lot of inmates don't have social skills. So when you give them a simple command like to tuck in your shirt, they want to immediately want to fight. You know, so a lot of times, a lot of our staff, when we come in, we're never guaranteed to come home. Okay, so that's the reality of the work we do. And I say that not as a hyperbole, because as a fact. In 1994, we had Officer Washington in Atlanta get killed by an inmate, got attacked, an inmate hit him with a hammer, lost his life. In 1997, Officer Williams in Lompoc in California, was his throat was slashed by an inmate. In 2008, we had Officer Rivera, who was an Iraqi war veteran, 2 tours, was stabbed 28 times, lost his life. 2013, another Officer Williams in USP Canaan, was stabbed 128 times, lost his life. A week later, we had another officer in Puerto Rico, Officer Albarati, going home, was shot going home by a hit made by inmates inside the prison. So our job is like I said, we're never guaranteed to come home. And I say that on purpose because it is a tough environment to deal with these inmates. A lot of our staff also work doubles, are mandated. So most federal workers work a 40-hour work week. Our staff work anywhere between 48 and 56 hours in this environment. So our bodies are tired. Our bodies are not alert, and to work 56 hours in this environment is dangerous. And then to deal with the toxic environment with management who really, I hate to say this, excuse me, but don't give a damn about our staff. They just care about themselves, and this is why the union is here. We are the voice, we are the whistleblowers for those who can't speak up. And to me, that's the most important thing of why we do this job. Because in the Bureau of Prisons, we don't get paid. We don't get a stipend. We do this because we care. We do this because we stand up to bullies. And that's how I see myself. That's how my colleagues who are in the union, we're the voice for those people who can't speak up. And like I said, my experience, in 1 year, because of my activism, I was under investigation for 18 times. In 1 year, 18 times. Not one day in the street. In 2023, before I left, I was assaulted by a manager, broke my collarbone. I was pushed in the back, because of activities. But, this is what we do. I want the people to know the union is your voice. We are the whistleblowers for the public, because if it wasn't for the union, you will never know what goes on in a federal prison. To me, our union leaders are heroes, because we do this job. Beside the job that we do inside of a federal prison, We do this as collateral duties, and we don't get paid for it, because it is a toxic environment. In our union, they didn't want to give us stab resistant vest. They fought against, they didn't want to pay for resistant vest. We did that. They didn't want to give us pepper spray for protection. We had to fight to get pepper spray. This is the environment that we deal with. The agency doesn't want to give us protection. We have to go to members of Congress. We have to advocate for our staff to get safety equipment so we can do our jobs. Because in the federal prison, the inmates are the ones that have the weapons, not the staff. We have to fight tooth and nail just to get a freaking stab resistant vest. And the reason we got it because we had lives that were lost. Like I said, in Jose Rivera in 2008, he lost his life. We had to fight tooth and nails to Congress to finally get one like 3 years later. And then Officer Williams in Canaan lost his life. We had to fight tooth and nail just to get a 2.5 ounce of pepper spray so we can protect ourselves and protect other inmates to assaults. So this is like a picture of what we deal with. You would think the agency would have our best interest, for us, but they didn't. For us to actually go to Congress and beg to get pepper spray and a vest so we don't have loss of life, it shows you how important the union is for our staff. We also were able to get increase the amount of officers in a unit in a penitentiary. It was only one per 256 inmates. Now we're based on Congress and based on our efforts, we have two for every 256 inmates at a housing unit, and that was all done by the union.
So nobody should work in an unsafe working condition, and especially in a place where in a federal prison where it's as unsafe as it can be. Why wouldn't management want to protect its workers against this unsafe working environment? What is the reason for these people to have to make people go through this in a way that unions have had to step in and have had to fight for these extra protections so that people stop losing their lives, so that people can have some kind of safety or reassurance that they're going to probably go back home tonight instead of, and it's a big burden for people to leave home and say, will I come back tonight? Because management isn't providing me what I need. So what do you think this is that these agencies weren't providing this equipment for their workers?
It's all about money. They don't want to spend the money. They don't want to spend the resources on staff. They want to look, and I have the proof. I was able to show via a FOIA request, show that the bonuses, their salaries that the agency gets is all to the executive staff. I think in 1 year, and I have all the documents so I can forward it to you if you want to, and also if you Google my name, like on USA Today and the New York Times, there was articles based on the waste, fraud, and abuse that the agency has spent on the bonuses. I think in 1 year, they dished out $2.5 million in bonuses just to the wardens and the executive staff while they're fighting to give us safety equipment, to give us a stab resistant vest, to give us pepper spray to protect ourselves and other inmates. They didn't want to spend money on us, but they're willing to spend money on themselves. It's greed and corruption by the administration in headquarters in central office from the Bureau of Prisons, Department of Justice. That's what.
Yeah, it's incredible how deep these issues really go far back into, and it trickles down and it affects the workers and it affects the safety of these places. I mean, it makes for it makes for an inefficient government, and it's not. And I've been repeating this over and over again on this show. It's not the people that work there; it's the people that are in charge that makes this inefficient. They're always looking to benefit themselves instead of looking out for their employees. And a place where employees are more numbers than people, and they're not really being looked at as people that are that they are deserving of safety in the workplace. Now, Joe, when you look back, what moment made you realize that speaking up and fighting back was the only way forward?
Like everybody else, usually when you get, I guess bullied by management, I had a supervisor that just didn't like me. And so she wrote me up for no reason at all. I was able to get the union involved. And then years later, I saw mismanagement. I had, at the time, I didn't want to, because nobody starts working for an agency, they want to get involved in the union. They want to become a union president. I just wanted to do my time, do my job, and go home. But because I saw the abuse, at the time, the president asked me to get involved, become a steward. At the time, I was an EEO counselor for the agency. So I was doing EEO cases. So I was familiar with labor law. So I had at the time, my president asked me to get involved as a VP. And once I opened the door, I got involved and start seeing the abuses. I start seeing, the bad management, bad lieutenants, bad captains, bad wardens, and then, like I said, the sexual harassment case, a lot of the women were getting, and I don't mean to be frank, but or getting sexually harassed by the inmates. And when I say sexually harassed, I'm talking about lewd comments, what we call ejaculation, masturbating toward our female staff. Our female staff did not give up their rights when they became federal officers to be sexually harassed. And when I saw that management wasn't doing nothing, and to be honest with you, at the time, my union president wasn't doing anything, that's when I started getting involved. It got so bad that our female staff were looking for lawyers to do something. They couldn't find, because nobody wanted to do anything. So being with an EEO background, I started gathering the evidence, started learning the policies of the agency, and then I ran for president. And my first thing was file the EEO case, got me a law firm from DC, and it took 7 years later, we got the settlement for our females. It's just when I've seen the abuse and I see the women begging for help and nobody will help them, that's when I got involved, because I had an EEO background, and hey, it's a blessing for our staff. We were able to change policy, and the unfortunate part of this, and this is probably going to piss off a lot of your people that hear this, the individuals, meaning management officials, that did a lot of this, ignoring it, still got bonuses and still got promoted within the agency, even though this cost the taxpayers $20 million. Think about it. Any entity that costs people, makes a company lose $20 million, you're going to get fired. But in our agency, not only did they get promoted, they got bonuses for doing the $20 million. That's a disgrace, which makes me, like I said, up the ante to expose the corruption. That's why I went to the Senate. I gave those numbers to members of the Senate, to Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, Congressman Troy Gowdy from South Carolina, Senator Ossoff from Georgia. I spoke before the committees. I gave them the proof. They put out a recommendation showing that I was right, but guess what? Nothing happened, which is a frustrating part on my part, but we still fight. Even though, like you said, I'm retired, as a union, I believe in the movement, I believe in the activism, and I believe in our people to help people. Doesn't matter where you are, who you are, because it's about, your rights and your protections. This is what the union is about.
Right. Now, I want to go in a little bit deeper on what goes on beyond the walls inside these agencies. Up there, you were talking a little bit about the toxicity of the agency. I want you to talk to us a little bit about how are these agencies toxic? That would tell us a little bit more about the toxic work environment. What does that mean for a BOP employee, or frankly, any other government employee because it stands beyond just the confines of a cell. Now, I know that you said that the BOP is a special circumstance where you've got people that do not act the same way that people outside do, right? They're in there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any respect or regards for the laws and to respect the people that worked in there. But how do these agencies contribute to that toxicity of the work environment?
I think the problem, and not just within the BOP, because I've seen it in the VA, because I've helped the VA a lot as well with cases, is they promote people who don't have a clue of what they're doing. In other words, they have the lack of education, the lack of knowledge destroys the agencies.
Yeah.
People put in for promotions for the money, but they're not educated into that position. So when you get people that only care about their title, they abuse the workers because I'm the warden or I'm a director of nursing or whatever. So I can do whatever I want without understanding the job. And so that contributes to the toxic environment, whether you work in the BOP, whether you work in the VA, whether you work in Social Security or whatever, or the TSA, because like I said, working for AFGE, I've seen this is not just isolated to the BOP. It's everywhere. You have people in management positions that are unqualified. So when you are unqualified, what do? You abuse your authority because you don't know anything, thinking that you're gonna force your way into making people do things. There's a lack of communication skills and there's a lack of knowledge in those positions. And that's what makes, whether you work in the BOP or the VA, an environment that's bad. And I've seen it. Like I said, I was in the negotiations with the VA over here in Orlando, and I was just shocked at the lack of knowledge from the management point of view, to the point where we were able to have them withdraw because I put them in a knot because they didn't know what they were doing. They were making changes to the nurses' working conditions without even notifying the union, changing people's shifts, days, and that's a big deal for people who have families. You just can't change the working conditions without going through the union. So we was able to change that and that aspect. And again, and I sound like a broken record, but I want the people to know the union is here to make sure things are done correctly, make sure the a master agreement, a collective bargaining agreement is followed. Because without the union, and people see it now, it's chaotic and there's abuse. I actually have a case right now that I'm, like I said, I'm doing it for free at the VA, where a lady is being disciplined for speaking Spanish in the workplace. Think about that. Let that resonate to the people, for speaking Spanish in the workplace.
And the incredible thing is that they'll justify that somehow.
Yeah, well,
like these agencies will justify it.
Justify it. And this is why I think the American public needs to know the union is here for the protections of staff, to stop discrimination, to hold everybody accountable. That's it. And if a worker let's say they violated a policy, there's progressive discipline, and we want to make sure the progressive discipline is followed, because that's what the union's here. We're not here to protect the guilty. We're here to make sure everything is fair and balanced. And because there's a narrative out there in the public that unions protect the criminals or whatever. No, we don't. There's the process for that. We are here to protect the blue collar workers, the public servants, from the corruption from up above. I think all of us agree that there's fraud, waste, and abuse. But the fraud, waste, and abuse comes from the top heavy, from the administration, from headquarters, because there's so much positions up there that are waste. It never comes from the foot soldiers, the working class, the regular 40 to 80,000 people that work, whether you work inside of a prison or you work in the VA hospital or you work from home, Social Security office. We are the glue that makes the agencies tick. we're not the fraud, waste, and abuse. If you want to get rid of fraud, get rid of those people that make $200,000 in headquarters. That's where the fraud, waste, and abuse is. The attack to the American public is to the government workers is ridiculous right now.
Yes, and just to touch on one of your points, because right now there's a huge attack on workers' rights, especially with the contracts we see this administration doing, stripping away contracts from agencies. I think the BOP was one of them.
Yes.
The VA is one of them. And talking about how we protect people and the importance of the unions within these agencies, like this hasn't stopped unions from fighting.
Correct.
For their employees. Like AFGE is still fighting every day. In my local, we're still representing. We're still fighting for people. It's just a different process. Thankfully, a lot of the policies were formed by the master agreement, and a lot of these policies still follow what the master agreement said before, and some of them actually cite the master agreement. So there's still some hope that we can still fight and still support the master agreement, even though it's not in full effect. In the meantime, while we get it back, because I'm confident that this will come back. But I think that without having a master agreement, it just furthers the point and exposes the huge inefficiencies within these agencies, the huge failure from these managers, from these directors, from all of these agencies to follow not even their own policies. Like these people don't follow their policies at all, and when a union comes and exposes that to them, I think it used to look bad when they failed to follow the master agreement. Now it looks even worse because they're not following not even their own policy, which dictates how they're supposed to run. Now, you were talking about how you help, with millions of dollars in back pay. What are these fights like behind the scenes? What can you tell us about these fights? What are they like?
They're stressful. they're from a personal point of view, it's a lot of work. Okay. I don't want to scare anybody, but it is stressful because you do got to do your regular job and then you got to do your union job. And then when you see the amount of bad behavior by managers, it is stress. Look, it's put me in the hospital 3 times with high blood pressure and chest pains. You know what? So I've had to tone it down. But the reality is when you see the settlements, or like in my case, I've had 17 termination cases, all 17 got their jobs back. It's rewarding, but it's a lot of work because I think sometimes management throws so much crap against the wall, try to make it stick, and it's our job to clean those walls and wash it away. And for the most part, we do a good job. I think we do a better job because most unionists, we do the research, whereas managers don't.
They don't.
And I'm going to give you an example, and I'll give credit to one of my wardens who let me teach a management class of what it is to be a union. Like for a union president, I got to be an expert in every department. Okay. Like I'm a teacher, but I got to be an expert in custody. I got to be an expert in food service, in facilities, in every department. If there's a infraction, I got to understand that facility, their policies and everything, because I got to eventually, when I go to arbitration, I got to present my case. Okay. And then I got to do everything. When you're an executive, you've got lawyers to fight your cases. You've got department heads to do your cases. You've got experts in every field. So you don't got to do anything. As a union, we got to do everything, including arbitrations, including being expert in that department. So it is a busy time. People got to understand. So, it's like I said, a lot of us do this as collateral duty, but we do it because we care. But it is extremely busy and it is stressful. but it's also rewarding, especially when you come out victorious. The only regret that I have is the amount of money that's spent when we go to arbitration, and the agency, they don't care because it doesn't come out of their pockets. To me, I would love to see that when a manager is found guilty, that they get disciplined for all the money we wasted. Because I think that would be a deterrent if every time they falsely terminate an employee or falsely accuse an employee or cost taxpayers millions of dollars, whereas back pay of overtime, or like in my case with the EEO case, that they should either be they should be disciplined, lose their job either through termination or through their position, go back, just like what would happen to us if we were to be found guilty of an infraction. It
Yes.
should be the same, because that will be a deterrent for a lot of these managers to do right. But because there is no deterrent, they continue to do bad behavior, bad policy. Like I told you, with the $20 million case that we won, the settlement, the EEO case, nothing happened to those managers. In fact, they were rewarded because I was able to prove through a FOIA request, this manager, look, they got a $20,000 bonus, $15,000 bonus. Then this person got promoted to this position, to this position. That's disgusting. When you reward bad behavior, what does that do? It encourages even more
It,
bad behavior because there's no
yep.
accountability. There's no deterrent. That's why, not just in my agency, I am so sure, because I've seen it in my short time working for AFGE, in the VA, in TSA, and some of these agencies. It's just they foster bad behavior, and there's no deterrent, and there should be deterrent. Because
Yeah.
when a regular blue collar worker does bad, they throw the book at us. But when a
Yep.
management costs millions of dollars, turn a blind eye or get promoted.
Yeah, and it's insane because, like you said, they're encouraged to do these things. Like it's almost like they want to have them not follow their own policies and behave badly, but also be able to have the possibility of denial and say, well, I didn't instruct them to do that, but you're rewarding the bad behavior. At the end of the day, these people are receiving thousands of dollars. And I think it's important for people to know that. It's that these managers receive thousands and thousands of dollars in bonuses every year, and it comes out of the pockets of the American taxpayers. How is this fair? Meanwhile, they're treating their workers and their employees like they're nothing, like they're not human, like they're just a number, like they're not deserving of working and protections and everything else. I mean, that's a crazy thing to think about when you reflect on it.
Well, it is, like I said, and the thing is, I'm not lying because I have the documents. So one thing is to say it, but the other thing is to show the documents. I have FOIA requests from 2011 all the way to 2023 with salaries and bonuses of every executive from the BOP to show the fraud, waste, and abuse. So they might not like it, they might not believe in it, but documents do not lie. It's in black and white. And I was able to expose it to members of Congress. I was able to expose it to the media. I've been on local radio shows, local TV shows to expose the fraud, waste, and abuse to some of these management officials. It's not coming from the workforce. It's coming from management officials, especially from central office.
Right. Well, let's get into the master agreement a little bit, because you were part of the negotiating. You were at the negotiating table for the 2018 master agreement for the Council of Prison Locals.
That was stressful. That was stressful.
Yeah,
it was under Trump.
Yes,
it was under Trump.
Yeah, so that says a lot about, but what were some of the toughest issues at the table, and what did that tell you about this administration? Because it's still running right now.
During the time our contract had expired, so they, and when I say they, I'm talking about our management wanted to like hammer out quick because they were under the gun by the Trump administration to, what's the word I'm looking for? To make a quick, contract based on what they want, not what's best for the staff. We were willing to keep the same contract, just do another 4 years. No, so we will go. So we actually stalled on purpose. I ain't gonna lie to you, because the elections were coming up soon, meaning in 2020, was it 2020, 2019, 2020?
2019, yeah.
Yeah, so we was able to extend it, go on caucus. They went on caucus until everything changed over, and we actually got a 5-year contract, which was a blessing instead of a 3-year contract. But during that time, we knew they were trying to put the foot in our throats, putting crazy. I actually have. If I had time, I could look at some of the proposals that they put on the table, which is so anti-staff. It was ridiculous. They wanted to take away all our rights, our clothing allowance, because we have take away our clothing allowance, the shoes. Like we started the broadcast is they didn't even want to give us stab-resistant vest and pepper spray. So you could imagine when we're negotiating for our staff for safety features, they didn't want to give us anything. They wanted to strip away everything that we gained in the past. And remember, staff, people out there, we work in an environment that we're never guaranteed to come home. Remember, the criminals are the inmates are the ones that have the weapons. We don't. We work 48 to 56 hours a week in a toxic environment. And then the administration in 2018 wanted to take away our safety, our safety stuff that we had once in the past, that we had staff lose life, never went home to their loved ones. Jose Rivera, a war veteran, 2 tours of Iraq, stabbed 28 times in the chest. Eric Williams, 26, 27-year-old, was stabbed 128 times to the point where his mother and father could not recognize him. Albarati was a lieutenant who found a whole bunch of cell phones at a stoplight, was shot, I don't know how many times. His car in Puerto Rico, his car was riddled with bullet holes. He had 2 young daughters. Helen Albarati, his wife, she's an advocate for us right now. Same thing with Don Williams, whose son was stabbed 128 times. The agency wanted to take away all our safety equipment, the stuff that we want. The loss of life those men gave so that we can have a vest, that we can have a pepper spray. They wanted to remove all that. That's how disgraceful. That's how disgusting. That's why sometimes, probably you can see it in my voice, I get angry, because we keep the community safe. Okay? If it wasn't for the men and women behind those prison walls, you have chaos. Might as well just open the doors and let's have a purge. Let all the inmates go loose. See how you like it. No, we keep society safe. You don't see escapes from federal prisons because we do a damn good job. And for the agency to try to remove our safety and our security is disgusting to the men and women work behind those prison walls, and also to the public who depend on us to keep them safe from all those gang members, all those MS-13, the Latin Kings, Black Guerrilla Family, all these mafia associates. That's who we deal with. We deal with the worst of the worst. All these gang members that get deported, we deal with in the prisons. Okay, there's one of us in a prison cell with 256 inmates and 1 officer. That's what we deal with. And to take our rights away and to take our safety equipment away is a disgrace.
Right. And another importance of unions within these agencies is that, you were talking about how these managers, a lot of them, they're just placed in these positions. They don't know what they're doing. A lot of them haven't even worked where they're at. Even if they've worked at let's say they worked at another agency, agencies run very differently from one another. Even if they're, BOP, one will run not the same with other. Like I've worked in different VAs within my career, and not one is the same
Yes.
with the other. It's like working for a totally different hospital system, although it's the same. And you know, when you're in a hospital, you want your staff to have the best equipment out there because you want the best care out there.
Mm-hmm.
And when we send people to prison, we want those people to be kept in there, and we want those people that work in there to have the best equipment to make that happen. So it's incredible to see how these agencies, and it's very telling about how these agencies care more about the bottom dollar and about, quite frankly, themselves, because they're still making a buck, but it's not going to the right places. Waste, fraud, and abuse. And instead of going to the right places, they put it back in their pockets. And it's incredible to see. And this is why we have to expose these things so people understand we need unions to be able to expose what goes on, because the people that work in unions, they're the people that actually work in these agencies. They're the people who know what goes on in there. Like you said, these are the whistleblowers. These are the people that put, quite frankly, their careers at risk to ensure that they raise a voice for what goes on and expose these fraudulent things that go on in these agencies. Now, looking at where things stand right now with the Bureau of Prison rejecting union contracts, you know, we've seen this administration, and when they did this, you know, they were talking about how unions are an obstacle to progress, right? All these things, selling it like it's a huge victory for people that they don't have collective bargaining anymore. Now, do you think now, with them doing away with union contracts, is the situation any better? Is it improving, or is it getting any worse?
Oh, it's 100% worse, because I already see it. I get calls all the time. This is why I tell my fellow retirees to get involved, to help our brothers and sisters out, because it is horrible. And so people like me are be able to be the voice for people who can't speak, because it is horrible without a union contract. You know, they can put anybody, they could change your posts, they could split your days off, they could deny your sick leave, they could deny your annual leave. It is bad. Just recently, and I hate to say this, but we had two staff members die of heart attacks at my local. And I don't know if it's related to the work, I don't know if it's related to the union contracts, but it's definitely something, you know. And so it is 100% worse. It's stressful. Like I said, the only thing that we've had dealing with a lot of this toxic environment was the union to protect. The union was there to be the covering of staff, to hopefully an accountability. There's no accountability right now, especially in our environment where it's life and death, and you don't have a union there. It is so bad. It is 100% worse today than it was last year. And that's strictly because they removed the union from the workplace. They removed the one thing that kept the agency sort of unbalanced. You know, right now it's an
accountability.
Unbalanced. Yeah, it's accountability. Like I said, we were the whistleblowers. I knew if there was a issue, I can call OSHA. OSHA has been in my facilities so many times. I can call a congressman, go to the media. You know, there's accountability. And I used to always tell the wards, don't make you don't want to become famous. Don't let me become famous. I don't want them to become famous. Okay, you don't want to become famous. In other words, expose you to the media, expose you to members of Congress, because you know you don't want that, because it's all about accountability. So let's work together, for the greater good for our staff. That's the most important thing. It's our staff.
Right. Now, you know, with all of this happening right now, do you think it's more or less important for people to join or stay in the union right now? I mean, you know, because a lot of people are disencouraged. They feel like they don't have a union anymore. Although we still have a union. We're still here. We're still fighting. But because of the contractual situation, people feel like they're missing a key point. And we see a lot of people that, you know, want to stay and want to support But what can you tell us? What can you say to those who are thinking about maybe staying away from the union or not wanting to join or cancel their union memberships?
If you drop, you're making them win. Okay, you're gonna make it worse. That's what they want. They want everybody to drop. And I'm telling everybody to do the opposite, to join and stay in the fight. Okay. When things get tough, you don't run away. You stay in the fight and you fight back. One way to fight back is to join the union via e-dues. Don't depend on the agency for anything. And I will say this, I was at the institution, at my institution last week. People are still, and I was encouraged to stay in the union. I was at the VA hospital 3 weeks ago having lunch with the local, and the amount of staff that missed us, okay, gave me some encouragement. They were like, we need you back, we need you back. And we would say, we're not going anywhere. We're still here. We'll still do work after our hours. You got retirees like me that's still in the fight. We could go to the media. We can do everything, still stay in the fight because we are going to win this. Just the argument alone, and I don't mean to be people bored, but the argument of national security, the reason why you want to get rid of the union doesn't hold water because the Border Patrol and the VA police, that's more national security than everybody else. And they get to keep that contract.
Right.
Okay. And so you can use that argument, and I actually have a copy where I saw the ad of the Border Patrol, and I have a lot of good friends and brothers in the Border Patrol who are law enforcement. But in their ad, when they hire people, it says national security and union contract in the same language. That within itself should cancel their executive orders because that's what they're advertising to join the Border Patrol, that they're national security and they have a union contract. And that's the argument that the Trump administration is using to get rid of the union and AFGE and the other contract. So to me, that actually helps to win our case.
Yeah.
So people, we're going to win this because their own argument, we're going to use it against them based on what they put in their advertising. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just saying, doing arbitrations, you use what they have against them in the courts.
And they just further our point that it's not about national security at all.
It's retaliation. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's retaliation. It's nothing more.
If you don't kiss the rings, then he's going to retaliate against you. And that's all it is. And that should be, and like I said, I don't know what the argument is from AFG. I'm sure they're going to use that argument. That's the argument that I would use because it's contradictory to what they just put out there. And anybody go out there, look at the Border Patrol, go to USA Jobs and look at the hiring thing and the advertising. It says national security and they have a union contract. That goes against what they're going against, the argument. So we should win in court. I'm confident we're going to win in court. And when we win, people, please, even if you weren't a union member, become a union member now because there's strength in numbers. And they see, not only do the administration sees the strength in numbers, but members of Congress see strength in numbers. They want to get reelected again. Those, especially when it comes to midterms. Let them know you're a union member and your vote counts because you do have a voice, and the union is the voice of the people and is the voice of the public, of the co-workers. We are so important. It's almost like a life and death, especially in the prisons. We are the voice of the people. We are the voice for people that can't speak up.
Right. And, I've seen people even make this argument. Well, I want to drop my membership, but once we get our contract back, I'm going to come back. I want to come back. And they have to realize this is not the time to drop their memberships. This is the time to actually stay in it more now than ever. Because if you drop your memberships, you are going to lose your union. If that's the mindset that, I'll just rejoin whenever we win. How do you think we win? How do you think that we can pay these lawyers and we can litigate?
That's 100% on the money. The union dues that you pay is to fight in the Supreme Court, to fight in the appeals courts. And not only in that aspect overview, but your dues also helps AFG retain staff to help the locals for national reps and organizers to help your union grow. like I said, without your membership, you're not going to have people to help locals with local cases.
Yeah.
So it's ramifications on a national level and ramifications on the local level. AFG just had a big rift. They had to let go of a bunch of staff. And that's unfortunate because the staff that are there are for the locals at the local level to help you with cases. Like I said, myself, I help out from EEO cases, Office of Special Counsel. I do arbitration cases. I got media relations. I got relations in Congress. That's a resource that the locals can have through AFGE. That if you work for a private company, you don't have that. But from a federal government, you have a voice and you have a lot of resources. And this is why we encourage everybody to continue to stay, continue to pay your dues. Look, I still pay my dues as a retiree because I believe in the
Mhm.
cause and I love my union and I'll always pay until the day I leave this earth because it's about the environment. I mean,
It
excuse me,
is.
it's about the environment and it's about our staff.
Right. It is. We just have to keep this fight running. I mean, we can't give up. If we give up as a collective, if we give up individually, each member is what makes the union the union. So really, for those that are listening that are union members, so they're that are not union members and are in a position where they can join, you know, even if the agency tells you you can't join, there was a day where you had bargaining unit employee right before your title and your SF50s and your personal file. And we're fighting to get that back.
Yes.
But we need your support. We need you to be in there. We need you to rejoin. If you drop your membership, you have to rejoin. You have to ensure the future
Yes.
of labor. And this is how we do it.
Anybody out there that has any questions, they could look me up on social media. I get a lot of I talk to a lot of people. I don't have no idea who they are. And I answer everybody's emails and I talk to people across the country from different agencies as to why it's important to join. Look me up on Facebook, Jose Rojas. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything. It's all about the union. If you have a question about whether it's an EEO, whether it's Office of Special Counsel, I've done it all from OSHA, from workers' comp, everything. You think about it, I've done it all. Reach out to me and I will help you, but also this is why the union is important because we are your experts for every aspect when it comes to labor law. We are there for the staff, and it's important that you join and it's important that you keep in the fight because without the union, there's chaos and you're seeing it now.
Right. Joe, before I let you go, you're retired.
Yes.
And you're still helping, representing AFG members, especially with EEO cases.
Yes.
For those members that may think, oh, these things are going to get better. Things aren't going to get worse. There's nothing that goes on. We don't need protections. We don't need people to fight for us. Can you just give us some examples of some of the most common issues that federal workers bring to you today?
It's discriminatory practices. Number one, even with, based on color, based on race, based on disabilities. One of the things that I did for AFGE is I give EEO training, especially when it comes to reasonable accommodations. That's the biggest misconception to a lot of people. You either get hurt or you got a disability. You're entitled to reasonable accommodations under the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. And people have a misconception about disabilities. I am your man for that. I am your person for that. I would tell people, look, go to your doctor. Don't worry about the VA or your person, whatever the agency says. Your doctor is your subject matter expert. Get a copy of your position description and another position description and bring it to your doctors, see what you can and cannot do, and we go on from there. I get calls all the time for abuse of authority, and I use the Office of Special Counsel, prohibitive personal practices. That's another toolbox that we can use. Use OSHA when you have, whether you're in the workplace, if you have mold in your office space or in the workplace, call OSHA. Give the agency a chance to fix it. If they don't fix it, I call OSHA. I have connections in OSHA, Department of Labor. There's so much the toolbox that we can use now, even without the contract that we can use now. Imagine once we get the contract back. So there is so much that's still available to us. You just got to understand, use your union, us. We are the experts. Don't do it on yourself. Use us. We carry that load for you, especially those of us that are retired. Even more, we are here. You know, I can't express enough how important it is to stay in the fight. You know, stay in the fight, because if you stay in the fight, we will win. And when we fight, we win. And you got to stay in the fight.
Right. That's right. I think, to be quite frank, I don't think that there's enough words that can describe the urgency and the importance of staying in solidarity and in keeping the union alive. Because once we survive this, it just shows, and it'll show that we have the power, and through collective bargaining, we have the power to be able to make a difference within our own workplace. So if we give up on our union, we're giving up on that power. So, Joe, thank you so much. You've given us a powerful look at what really goes on behind the walls and what it means to stand up for what's right, even when the system is stacked against you. So thank you so much for what you do, for what you've done, and for joining me today on this show, sharing your experience and your fight. So thank you so much, Joe, for being here
Hey,
today.
I appreciate the time. I'll love to come back again anytime you ask. I'm here. I'm here to answer anybody's questions, because I want everybody to know we are here together. You're never alone. Mental health is important as well during these times of crisis. If you have issues, go refer yourself to EAP for mental health, because it is a tough time. But you also have us, your local union officials at work, your retirees. We are here for you. So we're not going anywhere. You don't listen to the nonsense that's coming from the administration. We are here to stay. We are certified to be here. We are not going anywhere. And
Thank you so much.
And everybody can look me up. I'm here for you guys. Guys and
Thank
gals.
you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. So thank you again, Joe.
Yes,
and to everyone that's watching, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, please make sure to share, like, and subscribe. It helps us to grow. It helps us to keep bringing you the stories that matter to America's workforce, and it keeps us to doing the work that these agencies, quite frankly, don't want us to do. So please make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Until next time, stay safe, God bless, and remember, we are not giving up.
That's right.